Welcome to our leadership podcast, where we deep dive and delve into journeys of leaders who are shaping our future. Today, we have someone exceptional. Nitin Paranjpe, he has been the non-executive chairman of Hindustan Unilever Limited. With a career spanning more than 3 decades, he has shaped the meaning of leadership and created a number of transformations. It's an honor for us to have him here. Nitin, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So, Nitin, to start off, the idea is first to deep dive into your mind and figure out what is it that shapes you. You studied at COEP, did your mechanical engineering from there. You did your MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj. And I'm sure you've had an childhood, your adulthood, which have shaped your thought process into becoming what you have become. Help us dive into that.
Well, I guess I'm no different from anyone else in the sense that all of us are shaped by the family, the context, the cultural, the environment in which we grow up. I grew up in a relatively simple family. My father was a civil servant. My mother was a professor of social work, and then she went on to set up a non-profit organization which she still runs. So nothing out of the ordinary, but a family which, when I look back and think, there is so much that I imbibed from just observing my parents, and I don't think it was obvious at that stage. I think when I look back and think, I cannot find anyone who I've seen so closely who probably had a better work ethic and standards of integrity than my father had. And my mother, again, it's quite remarkable in terms of what she managed to do, managing the family, then going out to study, then doing what she's done. And just seeing her sense of passion and purpose and pursuing what's required and taking accountability. Not being an armchair critic and complaining about things, but going and doing things. It was fascinating. And I say this only today. I don't think as growing up as a child, I thought about all of this. But in a strange way, all of this does impact you. Other than that, what would I say? I think I was a reasonably good student. I don't think I was an exceptional student. I was always passionate growing up as a child. When I think about it, I was passionate about sport. And if there's one enduring memory that I would have, was a childhood spent playing sport. I played a lot of cricket, table tennis, many other sports in the building. And in many ways, sports, along with the family background, would have shaped me and who I am. I think it taught me discipline, it taught me hard work, it taught me the desire to keep improving every single day, taught me what it means to compete, and taught me what it means to lose more often than to win. So yes, all of these have had a big influence.
Wow, amazing. So integrity, accountability, these are two things which I see you've learned from your parents.
And in some ways, having seen my dad, today we talk about governance and in public life. I've seen my father live that. So even as a child, I think those were evident. So no one needed to teach us that. We'd just grown up seeing it.
Right. Amazing. And then after your MBA, you joined Hindustan Unilever Limited.
I did, but I have to say I was fortunate. I had no idea that I would get selected. And so when it actually happened, it felt like a dream come true. Of course, it was my dream company. I used to study in Bajaj, and in those days, the HUL office, it was called HLL in those days, was bang opposite, across the road. So I had a lot of association with HLL because there were people from the company who would come as visiting faculty and teach us. And I would look at them and I would marvel. I would be so impressed by these people would come and teach, and there was always this thought: would I ever get a chance to work for this organization? And so when it happened, it genuinely felt like a dream come true. And all I wanted to do was not worry about where I got to, was to just demonstrate that I belonged. Right. That the company doesn't find out in a short period of time that I was a selection mistake, a false positive, so to say. So that's all that I cared about.
No, but did you know then that this will be your trajectory, your life?
No, not at all. I didn't. I had not the foggiest idea of what a career meant. And to be honest, I have to say that when I was a student in Bajaj, there was a visiting faculty and who was, I think, the head of sales at that moment. And I would look at him and say, wow, what an incredible career this person has got. He works for arguably the most iconic company in the country, the most respected company around. First, just getting into that company was a dream come true. And if I could have risen to his level, I would have happily retired from that level.
Wow.
Yeah? And I genuinely felt that. I had no idea of what it meant. I had no understanding of corporate life. My father was a civil servant, an IS officer, so nobody in our family had done that. And while in a couple of years I realized that I did belong, and if I kept my head down, maybe I could get to his level. Right. And to be honest, I did get there sometime in early 2000, 2002 or so.
Head of sales.
Yeah, of that level in that organization. But I never forgot the fact that even had I retired at that level, I would have thought of my career as a successful career. Wow. And everything after that, in many ways, has been a bonus, and God has been kind that it's worked out.
Amazing. And so to reach there would have been many moments, significant moments. Anything that you remember would like to share with us, with our audience?
I guess I was fortunate. I was fortunate to have joined a company which places such importance on leadership and leadership development. So I was blessed with many bosses, many mentors who pushed me, who challenged me. And in some ways, several of them had more faith in me and my ability than I thought I was capable of at that stage. So I got the opportunity to work on many challenging assignments, and that made a difference. And I think the first job which the company gives you, frankly, I wonder, it's almost irresponsible when you take someone who's just graduated from business school and you entrust him with that responsibility. But that helps you grow. Two other experiences come to mind in my relatively formative stages. When I think less than 10 years of joining the company, I was given a call to go down to the south and be head of the region. It was the largest region, and I was made the regional manager of Chennai. And I'm not someone who is low on confidence, but I remember after hearing this news, I couldn't sleep that night because I couldn't imagine how everyone who had been in the chair, I held them in such high esteem. And now to say, God, I'm going to be there. Could I fulfill that responsibility? And within months of going there was a strike of the sorts that the company has never seen before. In Kerala, every single retailer decided to boycott our products. Wow. And going through that experience, making sure you look after your people, making sure you stand by your values, don't succumb to what we thought was an unfair action against us, was a remarkable experience. I probably grew more personally and professionally and aged in that period than many others. I think that was one big one. Fortunately, it turned out well.
Yeah.
There were several others, but the one I would think of was in early 2000s when, after several very successful years, I don't think I'd failed till then. I experienced what it meant to fail. Okay. Not just fail miserably. And if I wasn't missing a target for the first 15 odd years, I don't think I delivered on anything for the next two. And it is true when people say you learn more out of failure than many successes which were there. And so there were many such experiences, and which helped me and allowed me to keep growing. And like I said, in the end, I think my bosses had more faith in me than I thought was possible.
Right. Would you like to share more about the failure? Any lessons learned from there?
Yeah, I could. I think many lessons first. I don't want to sound immodest when I said I hadn't failed till that time. I think there were 15 years and I was successful. But good as that is, there's a big risk in that. I've prided myself on being grounded and not letting it go to your head, but 15 straight years of success can make you somewhat complacent.
Yeah.
And I suspect I never entirely saw or acknowledged the seriousness of what I was dealing with. I was probably slow. I was probably cocky and too full of myself. And nothing worked. I tried everything that I'd learned over this period, and whatever I did, it failed. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you can imagine the many months, and it went over a year and a half, the journey that I went through. First, a degree of denial. There's not my problem. Then I'm a victim. I've been set up. This is not my problem.
Right.
It's somebody else's problem that I'm dealing with. But after that, this sense of helplessness. I would often wake up at 3:34 in the morning, not managing to fall asleep, because I simply didn't know what to do. And then comes with that self-doubt. You ask, are you really as good as you thought you were? And it was terrible. I don't think I've ever gone through a period like that. And I think it was in one of those moments when tossing in my bed at 3:34, year and a half into this experience, feeling horrible about myself. You know, sometimes people say falling in your boss's eyes is bad. Of course it is. Falling in your own eyes is probably much worse. And that's what I felt like at that moment. And at that moment, in a strange sort of way, at 3:34, I don't know what it was. I don't know why, I almost surrendered. Surrendered not as in terms of giving up, but surrendered in terms of not worrying about what the outcome will be. And in a weird sort of way, I said, just go and do what you think is right. Don't worry. And it sounds odd, but the moment I said that, there was blinding clarity which suddenly emerged. I went and did the right things. I couldn't care a damn about what happened. And as things happened, as I was doing the right things, results started coming. And they came, and because it was doing the right things, they were more sustainable and things of that sort. But after the whole thing was over, I reflected. Why? What was it that prevented me from doing this for this period? Was it really that complicated a problem? And the answer was no. It was blindingly obvious if I was willing to see it, but I didn't.
Right.
And the reason I didn't is because I thought I was too clever. I thought I was too smart. I was trying to do all the tactical stuff rather than confront the issue and do the right things, because the right things were hard and they were expensive.
Right.
And it taught me probably 3 or 4 key lessons.
Okay.
The first one is, when you do the right things, the right outcomes always follow. And for me, it's embarrassing. I've always lived with this. Even as a child growing up, I've lived with this philosophy. But for that 18 months period, I did everything but the right thing. I'm embarrassed. And I've always said to people that this is like a law. Just like gravity. Every time you drop something down, it falls down. Right. Every single time. So also when you do the right things, the right outcomes follow. And I never did it for this period. So that was a reminder. And every time in my career when I've strayed away from this philosophy, I've paid a heavy price. Okay. So that was my first lesson. The second is just observing myself in terms of how I behaved. Like I said, I was in denial. I wasn't confronting the issue. I behaved like a victim. And I promised myself one thing, that never in denial and never a victim must be the life mantra you have to live by. It's good in business, it's good in life, as a life lesson. But as a person, and I wasn't doing enough of that. And the third thing I realized is, why wasn't I taking those hard calls? Because they felt expensive. And I thought I was so good that I'll find some cheaper solution to do this. That's why I was avoiding it.
Right.
And I learned one thing, that however expensive that solution might seem, the cheapest it will ever be is now. The longer you wait, the harder it gets and the more expensive it gets. If I had addressed this 18 months early, it would have been cheaper and easier. 18 months to 2 years later, it was harder and tougher for me to get there. So I could go on, but if I was to talk of the key lessons, I would say these would be some of the lessons that I learned that time.
These are like the Nitin's laws of leadership through adversity, something like that. And we would love to deep dive into it sometime in the future as well. So you mentioned that your experiences age you in some way or the other. Was that a reason that you became one of the youngest CEOs in HUL in 2008? And take us through that journey and what happened after that, after you
Listen,
became
I
the
think,
CEO?
again, this was it was quite out of the blue. I had absolutely no idea that I would be called upon at that stage. And another of those examples where my boss had more faith and belief than I had in myself. So was I ready for that role? Of course not. I was entrusted there in that role, a rookie CEO, of course excited, of course delighted. It felt like I was on top of the world. It was a company I joined as a trainee in 1987 and just in 21 years in 2008, and I was tapped on the shoulder to get this. Of course it felt great. And the first few months were, as you can imagine, like a honeymoon. But a phrase I've used before, we all know honeymoons don't last.
Yes.
This didn't last too. But honeymoons don't always end in a nightmare. Mine was going to end in a nightmare because in 2008, some of us who have been around remember, the world went through a global financial crisis, 2008, 2009. And just a few months into that role, the world crashed.
Right.
Business collapse. You saw commodity prices, trade, everything going mayhem. I remember crude and crude oil, on which key commodity in many of our products, swung from $130 at one point to $30 at the other, and moving up and down. And business stalled, growth wasn't coming. And here was a rookie CEO who had never dealt with anything remotely as close as this, in charge of that business at that moment. And so it was tough. And I don't know why, but at that moment, faced with, I also have to mention, had I not gone through my first failure and the lessons of that, I would have been even less prepared to deal with this adversity at that moment. So I was fortunate that I'd gone through this. I remembered those lessons, doing the right things, confronting issues, not dealing. And I was blessed with a team around me whose heart bled for the company. I was also blessed that I'd been around in the company for 20 years and had a degree of trust and credibility that people had. So while there were many adverse things around, there were some things which were right. And at that moment, I was reminded of an experience that I had 10 years ago. I had a chance encounter with Professor Prahlad. Chance encounter, as in it wasn't such a chance. He was on our board, but I was a young manager and he happened to have a conversation. And I remembered that conversation, and he said a few things at that moment, and I walked out of that room and said, wow. And super impressive in terms of what he said and the framework which he gave. But I walked out, and shame on me, I dismissed it. He's saying, but he's a professor. Of course, he'll have impressive frameworks. I didn't do anything about it for 10 years. And 10 years later, I don't know why, serendipity, this thought crossed my mind. And I then, with my back to the wall and nothing else to do, I said, oh no, I have nothing else to do. Let me try and see if what sounded good in theory actually works in practice. So it's a long story. I'm not going to get into it here. Maybe on another forum I'll give the details. But it allowed me at that moment to carry out many human experiments. Human experiments to see what Professor Prahlad was saying, which sounded good in theory 10 years ago, actually worked in practice.
Right.
And I had not the foggiest idea that it would work, but I had no other alternative. So I said, give it a shot.
Right.
And over the next 12, 24, 36 months, I saw things which I'd never seen before. The same bunch of people with the same resources were delivering outcomes which were not a little better, not much better, but materially different outcomes.
You created this transformation
Materially different.
And that was during those times.
In those periods.
Wow.
Faced with adversity when there was no other choice. Therefore, I experimented. I experimented once and it worked. I experimented another year, it worked. And it troubled me. It troubled me. How is it possible that the same guys with the same resources are getting outcomes which are so different? And I was so troubled, I kept trying. But till I was able to answer what was the underlying reason for this transformation and this change which was happening, I couldn't sleep easy, because having understood it, there was a chance you can replicate it going forward.
Right.
So like I said, I'm not going to say more at this moment. I do think I have an opportunity to speak at the premier event that you hold. Maybe I'll share a little more about this at that stage.
I'm sure our audience will be very excited to listen to all of these philosophies. So would like to a little bit dive more into your leadership philosophy. What do you, all of these experiences have shaped you in a particular way? We know now that leaders, if they go through adversity, they can actually bring in transformation. Would like to understand more.
I think I'll give one insight around this. I think one of the key things I realized, and a little more of that will come out later, is I realized that all of us have far more intrinsic capacity than even we know of.
Yeah.
Human potential is near infinite. Now I say this and you'd wonder, but well, this is nice to say, but why doesn't it come? And the reason is that most of us are so afraid to fail. We are so afraid of failure that we don't even venture trying.
Right.
We play too safe. We don't go beyond the realms, and we allow our very logical brain to tell us 5 reasons why something can't happen.
Right.
Yeah. And the truth is, the brain will tell you 5 reasons it can't happen. But you know what? Sometimes you're not interested in the 5 reasons it can't happen. You want to be driven by the desire to find the one way by which it can happen.
Right.
And as long as you are troubled by, I will fail, I will be judged, this might happen, there is no chance. Fear of failure is a debilitating emotion.
Right.
Yeah. Working on something which no one in the world has worked before. Yeah. Something pioneering, something that no one's, that's an exhilarating feeling. When you're in that mood, there are creative juices, there is innovation which is coming in. When you're in the fear of failure mode, that's debilitating, crippling.
Right.
So one of the big things is, how do you move people? How do you move people from that fear of failure to experiencing the joy of working on things that no one has worked before, where no one expects you to get to that outcome, but just the journey itself is pleasurable, where you could work hours and hours and never feel tired.
Right.
Because you're having fun, you're having a blast.
Enjoying.
And at other times, when you feel threatened, you feel judged, when you feel you'll fail, when your boss is going to say, my God, a little bit of work and you're like this. So that's one core principle. And then, of course, there are many things, what it takes to create this.
Right.
And there are other things which go on.
So Nitin, you went on to become a global leader, a global executive at Unilever, and then the Chief Transformation Officer as well. Would you like to share any additional learning that you received during that stint of yours?
Well, quite a few. I don't know which ones. Maybe you touched upon transformation.
Yeah.
And I found it quite paradoxical in terms of, as I studied change and transformation, I think it's obvious to all of us that there is more change, happening in the world around us. There are more companies trying to drive transformation programs.
Yeah.
The pace is only increasing. That's the reality. And the answer is quite simple. Why is every other company driving some change program, transformation program, simply to make sure that they remain relevant to the changed world?
Right.
The world is changing so much that you need to change to keep up with it. And the truth is, despite all of this, very, very few transformation programs actually achieve the goals that have been set out for itself.
Right.
Most fail. And there are studies which show 8 out of 10 fail. Some other study, I think Bain had done that study, some other study showed that only if you take all the objectives of a transformation, less than 12% of these change programs deliver fully. And I kept thinking to myself, why would this be the reason? And some of it is simply, could be just sloppy management and you haven't thought through things, etc. But even when you do, most fail. And I came up with 2 or 3 reasons why even experienced, and me included, I've made my mistakes in this area, get some things wrong. And the first is, as leaders, we think of transformation, we form a certain change narrative in our mind. We find it exceptionally compelling. And we think that what is so compelling to us as leaders, as a change narrative, must be equally compelling to the rest of the organization. And McKinsey had done a fabulous article. It's called The Inconvenient Truth of Change Management, or this thing, in which they talk about the fact that as human beings, in organizational context, there are at least 5 different sources of meaning that people have. Some people are driven by improvements to the company and shareholders. Some people are driven by making a difference to consumers and customers. Some are driven by making a difference to society. Some are difference to me and my team. And some others to me. What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
So often the narrative which the leaders have come up doesn't fully resonate with the others. Therefore, that discretionary effort which is required doesn't happen. So that's one. And the second one, if I was to talk about a really big one, is I think leaders often mistake the necessity of a business case with its sufficiency. So what do I mean? I think, of course, you need a very robust business case for change. But just because you have a robust business case doesn't mean you don't need a robust people case for change.
Right.
So it is necessary but not sufficient. And most people don't spend the time to think through the people case for change. And that is a big folly.
These are really beautiful thoughts.
So, and I could go on, but I think in the interest of time, I will stop with a couple of insights out of some of these.
No, amazing. I mean, people case for change. That's, I mean, both of these are very important and really beautiful. Now, let's jump into some rapid fire questions.
Oh, God.
Are you okay with that?
No.
But podcasts today are never complete without,
sure.
putting you on the spot. Okay.
I am on the spot. You can.
Yes. So let's start with those. If you could swap your role with any other leader, alive or in the past, for a day, who would that leader be?
Oh God, I don't know if it's rapid. Okay, so not sure whether there would be a leader whom I want to swap my role, but I'd love to be a fly in the wall and observe.
Yeah.
If I were to take a leader from the past and a leader of today.
Yeah, sure.
Leader from the past, I would say Gandhi. I've been intrigued. Most people I think he was the most creative, ingenious person who came up with the most innovative solutions to intractable problems. Who could imagine what he did? So I'm just curious to see what was the thinking which allowed, if I could be. And the second, in today's time, I'm a big cricket fan. And I've always admired Dhoni as a leader, and I found some of his qualities exceptional. So if I could get a peek into his brain, which allowed him to do what he did.
Like the way we are doing it with you now.
No, that would be fascinating.
Amazing. Both of these leaders have this, they bring transformations in adversity. Dhoni also is known for doing that. Let's jump to the next question. What is the biggest misconception about the consumer goods industry? Being from there, what would you like?
In today's time, people think it's they want to be in interesting tech space, new age space, and therefore there must be the feeling that this is a boring industry. Nothing further from the truth. Super exciting.
It's exciting. Yes. Any book, movie, resource which has influenced your professional approach?
I don't know what professional approach, but it's changed me.
Okay.
So there was and very few books actually change your behavior. There was a book I read a few years ago called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Okay.
And till the time I had this very macho attitude towards sleep. I could go through overnight flights, I don't have jet lag, I can take a red eye, I can sleep, burn the candle on both ends and nothing happens.
Right.
When I read that book, I said, how misguided I have been, how stupid of me. And that changed a lot of my behavior.
Amazing. A few words that can define your leadership style.
You have to ask the people who work with me.
I can say maybe transformational leadership is something that you are.
I don't know. I think situational leadership.
As well.
I think there are times when I could be very, very hands-on and not let go. There are times when I could be super empowering and be there are times when I would want to lead from the front. At times from the ends.
Yeah.
That's probably what I might say.
Perfect. So many of our audience are first-time managers as well. So any lessons for the first-time managers?
I don't know whether I can give any lessons for first-time managers. I'm saying trust yourself, believe in yourselves. Yeah, don't fall prey to this whole notion of I have to plot my career and I have to go here and this is what I have to do. People swear. I keep telling guys who join companies, saying, listen, you may be very bright, but you're not that bright that if half your mind is on the job and the other half is plotting your career, you will do a better job than someone whose 100% of their mind is focused on the job today. Yeah?
Amazing.
And therefore, the guy who focuses on the job today does a better job, gets better opportunities.
Right.
And the other person in a bizarre way says, oh shit, I didn't plan my career properly, spends more time plotting their career.
Right.
And has perverse outcomes which is there. So focus on the job to be done.
Right.
That's your best chance of getting there. And be open to opportunities. You can't plot everything. Sometimes serendipity has a role to play. Right. So when things come up, be courageous enough to venture and try.
That's very useful. Recently, we did a research in GMI, and we identified that the Gen Z managers are displaying more signs of toxicity. We had defined toxicity based on certain parameters. So I think this, what you said, is also important for them to integrate in their working style.
I'm, for many of the young people who say, who's this old foggy giving us? I'm saying, so you don't have to listen to anything that I've said, but I keep saying, don't block messages. Listen to everyone, then filter it through your value system, to your thinking, and have an open mind and then do what you believe in.
So Nitin, your journey has been great. Just to close off final points, you mentioned do the right thing and outcome will follow, right outcome will follow. Any conclusive statements from your end for the audience before we close?
No, really, like I said, I think there are too many people giving advice. I don't want to be here. I just say it's more exciting to be 30 than 60 at this stage. So you have the future ahead of you. Believe in yourself, follow your passion, and retain that idealistic streak that youth often have. And with the passage of time, very often we allow it to be killed, deadened. So don't let the naysayers dent your belief and confidence. Go out, there's more opportunity for you in this world if you want to go out and make a difference.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Nitin, for sharing your experiences today. It has been amazing, truly innovative as well to understand a number of viewpoints that you have shared. We look forward to continued impact of your words on the entire set of leaders across the world. Thank you. And for our audience, thanks a lot for joining us today. And we hope you gather something out of this today that you take back to your homes and your hearts.